right. This meeting is now being called to order. Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Testing, all right, thank you, good morning, and welcome to Central Basin. This meeting is now being called to order on February 24th at 10 a.m. Can we have a roll call?
May I say something?
Yes.
Yes. For the sake of unity and time, I'd like to say that I support her for chairing this meeting.
Okay, Mr. Apodaca, okay, go ahead. Can we have a roll call?
Director Chacon?
Right.
Director Rubiki?
Here.
Director Hawkins?
Here.
Director Oscoli?
Here.
Director Vasquez?
Present.
Director Camacho Rodriguez?
Present.
Director Apodaca?
Present.
Okay, so we're gonna have Director Chacon do the invocation and Director Urigi, who's gonna have you do the pledge of allegiance. Please rise.
Lord, we come before you this morning, Father God, Lord. We just give you all the praise, glory, and honor, Father God, Lord. We pray, Father God, for unity on this board, Lord. We pray for your wisdom, Father God, Lord, and we ask in Jesus' name, amen.
Our flag is bright in color, brilliant in courage, and firm in faith. To these let us add our sincere pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated.
Okay, Madam Secretary, was this agenda duly posted?
Yes.
Okay, now, was this agenda, there are a number of individuals that have requested that they be notified that there's a meeting, that you, as a part of your duties, be notified that a meeting is being called. Have you notified those individuals?
Yes.
Okay, so about 2 weeks ago, I've asked you for a copy, both you and the deputy secretary, for a copy of the list of individuals who request that information. Is there a reason why you haven't given me that information?
No reason, Director.
Okay.
It's an oversight. We'll get it to you.
Okay, yeah, that information is public information. Anyone who comes to the board secretary and the deputy secretary is entitled to have that information. The elected members of the board of directors, if they request that information, are also entitled to have that information. So I look forward to receiving that. And many of you attended our last board meeting. I'm a little nervous right now because I remain very concerned about the state of the conduct that has been exhibited here at this agency. Robert Apodaca is a documented sexual predator who has already cost our agency almost $1 million for his attacks on women, and we have to stop this conduct. On January the 30th, at an open board meeting, I was physically assaulted by the same individual. Director and assistant city manager in the city of Downey instigated this assault because of their joint failure and refusal to accept that this board reorganized lawfully on January the 30th.
President Vasquez, if I may, just real quick, I just wanted to advise you that if we're going to have a discussion about the things that you are alleging, that the Brown Act does allow for us to have those discussions behind closed doors, and I would recommend that we do that for a variety of reasons. One is, and the most important one, is it could place this organization in a really bad position legally.
Thank
So
you, sir.
I would recommend that.
Okay, thank you. The public and assault and attack occurred in a public meeting that's in the record and that's videotaped. Their effort to silence the voice of those of us that are rightfully and dutifully elected to this board is not okay. That day, Director Apodaca, after being prompted by
I also,
the assistant
Director
attorney-
Vasquez, I don't mean to be difficult, but I also want to advise you that this item is not agendized.
Right, but
It is agendized, or we can have it agendized at a subsequent meeting. And for those reasons, I would recommend that we move on with the agenda. We have a lot of items to get to.
okay. And just for the record, your firm, in closed session also resigned as general counsel, so you're no longer serving as a general counsel. I will continue to, document, any and all forms of harassment that I had to sustain over the course of the year. As I mentioned, back in 2018, October to be precise, I filed a complaint with the Human Resources Director around these very same issues, and that complaint was ignored by the Human Resources Director at that time. So this harassment that you actually finally saw in the public and on video is not something that is new. And as recently as January this year, Director Apodaca was found to have received another complaint at the Metropolitan Water District for similar conduct. So we will move forward, but this issue will not die until we, as a community, get not only a voice on this board, but that this conduct stop, and that the elected directors that are put here by the people of this district are given a voice on this board. So,
President Vasquez, if I may, I do want you to know that when these types of complaints come to the district, whether it's harassment or any type of other types of harassment, I do want you to know that since we've been here, we will make sure that any of these allegations are duly investigated. That is the appropriate thing to do in order to protect this organization. So after the meeting, I'd be happy to sit with you and get a little bit more information about what transpired, and we can do what we need to do to make sure that we protect this entity. Thank you.
thank you. And also, as a matter of record, on January the 30th, this board did lawfully reorganize, and I am serving as the president, and Director Chacon is the vice chair of this this agency. So I would like for him to be acknowledged also as vice chair as we lawfully reorganize. So with that, we'll go ahead and go to the public orals. If we have any public comments.
There are 3 speakers. Mr. Juan Munoz.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Juan Munoz, and I reside at 3136 Northern Avenue, Inwood, California. And I was just witnessing these open remarks, right? And I'm frankly very, very upset. I live in Inwood. A quarter of our people live in poverty, right? They need an advocate, and the mission of this board is to ensure that we have safe, reliable, and affordable water, right? That's the mission. That's the stated mission. And we're not going to accomplish that by creating a toxic board. We need to lift each other up. We need to work with each other. We need to ensure that we're focusing on the priority here, which is, advocating for those folks that are living in poverty, who can barely afford to pay their utilities as it is, who are on fixed incomes and are struggling. I'm really upset that, we weren't able to talk about this more, that, that these complaints against Mr. Apodaca, have gotten nowhere. So I just wanted to let the public know that we can't keep creating this environment where we're disregarding women. We need to do better. And I was and I witnessed that video as well. And I was upset that instead of a fellow person on this board, stopped and intervened, and we clearly saw that, there was assault, like that's what it was. And instead of stopping it, that person chose to, instead cover it up for that person. That's not how it works, and I'm just really mad about that, so thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Maria Elena Lamas.
Good morning, I need translation. Somebody.
¿Alguien lo puede traducir? Violeta, ¿me puedes traducir? Gracias.
Buenos días, miembros de aquí del Consejo de aquí del Agua.
Good morning, members of the board.
Mi nombre es María Elena Lamas.
My name is Maria Lamas.
Yo vengo de la ciudad de Canton
I live in the city. I come from the city of Compton
con una inquietud
with inquietud
de informarme y saber cómo se distribuye el agua en el sistema del agua, cómo distribuyen o cómo están los sistemas adaptados para cada ciudad.
She would like to know how is the water being distributed in the cities. But she's very concerned on learning how and she learned the
Porque
distribution of the water.
a veces en las personas que están encargadas no nos dan la información correcta, simplemente nomás hablan sobre sus negocios, sobre la política, es como un show que hacen, pero no están dando la prioridad a nuestra comunidad.
When we ask the elected officials how this work, they just speak about the politics and their business, but not actually to point what is going on in here.
Nosotros como proveedores, como comunidad de proveedores, tenemos el derecho de saber qué clase y qué tipo de agua estamos recibiendo para nuestra salud y para la vida.
Us as providers, we need to know what is it that it comes, for life. We want to know what is it, what contains in water, and what is it that is good for the future.
Y eso es lo que yo quiero saber, porque aquí lo que se trata es de discutir la política, los miembros, el dinero, los fondos, cómo los distribuyen, pero a veces no se están distribuyendo para beneficiar los sistemas.
Hablan de política y hablan, they speak about politics and they talk about distribution and they talk about, ¿qué más digo? How you guys are spending the money of the community.
Y eso es lo único que ellos están, es como un equipo que únicamente están peleando el negocio, el dinero, y a veces no están dando prioridad a las necesidades actuales que se están viendo en las tuberías, cómo está dañando el agua, porque yo fui una persona que me llené como de alergia de la misma agua, y nosotros queremos que nos den un sistema mejor y que nos informen sobre todo cómo filtran el agua o qué contenidos tiene el agua.
We would like to know what is the process of the water and what the water.
Y también
Oh, I see. Okay, let's give her a little bit more time since she's having to translate. Oh, it's a battery. Okay.
Which is really bad.
Let's check the batteries before every meeting.
Switch them out this morning. Would that be great?
We need the microphone so it can be taped, so it can be recorded.
He's gonna get some batteries.
Well, let's start again. She would like to know, as she was saying, she would like to know what is it in the water, what is it in the pipes, because she got some real bad allergies, and instead of just arguing about things in here, about politics, but you guys don't take care of, of the business of the people.
Ahora, el aspecto que supuestamente dicen que privatizar, ya estamos como en México, como en los petróleos de Pemex, que quieren privatizar el agua, hacer negocio con el agua, y únicamente lo que les importa son las ganancias y el dinero, porque lo que nos importa es proveerle a nuestras comunidades, a los niños y a nuestra juventud y a todos una agua de calidad.
We are like in Mexico, that we're just talking about their earnings and how we can make more money, but not actually what is good for the communities. And privatizing, there you guys are just interested about privatizing, public water.
Y pues esa es mi inquietud, porque ya no se trata de tanto política, de que si el dinero que se provee, que abogados, y que es como un show. Nosotros queremos que la comunidad reciba los servicios, el agua purificada que debe de recibir para nuestras comunidades, para nuestros niños y para todo, porque eso es lo que tenemos que verificar, que se esté recibiendo agua para la salud y la vida, porque a veces nos engañan y pues las aguas están llenas de contaminantes como el aire, tampoco nos lo van a saber qué contaminantes tiene, y nosotros respirando y que se desarrollan enfermedades y que el coronavirus, pero es por los mismos contaminantes que existen dentro del ambiente, igualmente en el agua. Entonces, nosotros estamos tomando el agua de toda la comunidad y queremos que se enfoquen más en cómo proveernos el agua y revisarla, y que tengan los medios para el sistema mejor de técnicas para darnos y proveernos el agua. Gracias.
Gracias.
Question. Madam Director.
Sure.
Who is her purveyor?
¿Quién es el proveedor
¿A quién le paga su bill de agua? ¿A cuál compañía le paga el bill de agua?
compañía?
Ahí está.
Oh, okay.
Sativa?
So Sativa, ¿usted vive en la área de Sativa? Oh, it's one of the privates. Is it Liberty? It's Liberty? That's Liberty? Yeah. Señora, ¿la compañía que usted describe su bill de agua cuando paga el agua es Liberty?
No.
Ah,
Son 3 compañías, pero esa me pasó. Eso no recuerdo muy bien, pero
she doesn't remember. Yeah. So it's either
Son
Liberty,
tres.
Golden State, and
Golden State.
Golden State. It's Golden State, yeah. Okay.
But something that she
Gracias.
wants to remark is that she really wants to know what is in the water for her community, and what is it that it contains, because there's a lot of pollutions in the air and in the water, and she would like to know what is it in the water.
Gracias.
Ok, gracias señora. Le vamos a dar el teléfono de la compañía y la persona que hace el trabajo en la comunidad de Golden State para que le pueda dar respuestas a sus preguntas.
Gracias.
Ok, gracias por venir señora. Do we have any other? Marta Arguello.
Good morning, my name is Martalina Arguello. I'm the Executive Director of Physicians for Social Responsibility. And my current project that I'm working on is actually mapping out toxins in South and Southeast LA cities, water issues, but also training both our members who are physicians and nurses and community members of how to more effectively engage in water issues and water governance to ensure that we have the human right to water. And so I did see that video that we're not supposed to mention. And as someone who does work to educate communities, it was stunning. And at the same time, it happened as I'm learning about how all these water systems are managed, how communities can engage. And you have a problem. You have to do better. First, so I wasn't going to speak, but I saw one, you have no translation. The vast majority of your population is Spanish speaking. And you have meetings, public meetings, when there is no translation available. You have to do better. When we talk to community residents throughout this area about their water, the first thing that they say is, we do not trust it. And now I understand why. Trust starts at the top. And if they don't trust you, they're not going to trust the service that you provide and the water that you give them, denying them their human right to water. So you have to do better. You have to do better by the people who use your water systems. And I think the earlier speaker was right. The solution to this is not privatization. It's actual public oversight and ensuring that this space is a community-friendly space, where the languages that are spoken by the people who receive your water are reflected here, where the values of the people who drink your water are reflected here. And until you do that, you can't guarantee the human right to water. And you can't solve the question that people have, can I drink this safely? They will not believe you until you change this culture of this organization. And we are engaging with you. We would love to help you. We have many, many years of experience in bringing communities to public agencies for accountability and to create trust between community and the agency, because you have to do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers?
Two more. David Gonzalez.
Hello, good morning, Madam Chair. Yes, my name is David Gonzalez, the People Water District. My consensus here, listening to the other speakers, is that, the Central Basin needs to get their priorities in order. So what I would like to suggest, we've got, state representatives from Bob Archuletta's office.
Would you speak into the mic?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, there are state representatives from Senator Bob Archuletta's office and Assemblywoman Cristina Garcia's office. We have several purveyors here and your staff. What I would like to suggest is that you move the closed session till after the board meeting, because your closed session is going to last for maybe an hour, 2 to 3 hours. But there are important things that the public needs to hear about and would like to have you guys address prior to your closed session. I'm interested in number 10, the Board of Directors reorganization. You have the Central Basin Financing Corporate meeting. I'd like to ask you if you would just please get your priorities in order. And, it is my consensus leading to the other three speakers that, they're interested in the facts and things that are going to affect and concern them. So once again, I would like you, it's just a suggestion, but I would like you to consider moving the closed session to the last of the agenda. Thank you, Board.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers?
One more, just by the first name of Joey.
All right, good morning everyone that attended. I actually want to know who assaulted their constituent. If you could raise your hand, if you're not afraid, because you clearly aren't afraid to put your hands on other people. But I guess since you're not going to answer that question, can you at least tell me where you got the idea that that's a good thing to do? Is it a common practice? Is that type of behavior something you usually engage in with other females?
Sir, this is a one-way communication. The board is not going to respond.
Oh, no, I understand. This is
Okay.
to make a point.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you.
So the
Thank you.
person knows that they're going to be held accountable. Perhaps you're not used to accountability. Perhaps you're not used to people showing up and calling you out. And perhaps you're not used to doing your job the way you're supposed to do it. So I want you to know that not only are we going to begin to show up to hold you accountable, but personally, you shouldn't even be sitting there. Why you're still here today is beyond me. It's shocking. Clearly, you're not qualified. And why nobody else stood up and did anything about it, that's even more shocking. It is not unreasonable to hold someone with reasonable force who has clearly displayed acts of violence against another human being. So I'm gonna work really hard, not only so that these guys cannot privatize the water, but I'm gonna work really hard so that this guy does not sit on that chair again. Because you don't deserve to be there, sir. And if you haven't gotten it by this late in the game, if you don't understand that, then you're clearly out of touch with moving times. That's all I will say about that. You should feel ashamed of yourself.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
No more speakers.
Okay. I do have a question with respect to the order of the agenda. And actually the agenda itself. Would you, Cecilia, did you put this agenda together?
Yes,
Yeah. Who did you work with to put the agenda items that are on the agenda?
with the board president, Kapalaka at the time.
Uh-huh.
So I simply put everything that was at the committees and then and previous items from previous meetings, I had to see what should be agendized. So that's how I went by.
Did you work with anyone else or get approval with anyone, from anyone else?
Language, as far as the closed session language from the full council, just confirming the accuracy of it.
And who, you said you said general counsel, who do you identify?
All of ours, Mr. Philomena.
And you have been informed that they resigned?
I've been informed that they have not resigned and that the contract expires at the end of this week.
But you have been informed in public meetings by other directors that they have resigned in closed session on January 30th,
Yeah.
right? Any writing?
If I may, Madam President,
Sir, I just want her to answer the
I
question.
can, I can clarify, but
Yeah.
So yes, directors have mentioned
Okay.
that they have resigned, but as I have also mentioned, we have not received anything in writing from the firm stating that they have resigned.
The closed session items, we typically have the closed session items at the end of the agenda. Director Apodaca was the one that directed you to place this at the beginning of the agenda.
Yeah, so I confirmed with him if that was the option that he wanted to go with, given the lengthy items on the agenda, and he was okay with the closed session at the top.
So moving forward, you understand that I'm the chairperson and that Director Chaplin is the vice chairperson?
okay, may I intervene at this point, Madam President?
I just want to get a response from her because she seems to not have a clear understanding of who the chairperson is and who the vice chairperson is.
Well, I think it's a legal issue, which is why it would be appropriate for us to opine.
It's not a legal issue, sir. It's very clear in the admin code. And when we started this meeting, Director Apodaca indicated, I'm gonna give you permission to to chair the meeting today. And I wanna make sure that there's a crystal clear record that we took action on January the 30th and that the administrative code lays out very clearly, and I'll read again for the record, only in the event that the board is unable to agree on the selection of officers in any given year, then the position of president shall be filled by the most senior member of the board by a rotation process. So it says here so the rotation process, as was in January, is that Director Phil Hawkins was the next in rotation. Director Phil Hawkins declined the presidency. The next person in rotation was Director Archer Cohn, and Director Archer Cohn declined the presidency. Thereafter, the rotation, in line for the rotation was myself, and I accepted the position as president. And so that was a process we followed. That's the process that's outlined in our administrative code. And the same process was followed for the position of vice president, which again is clearly outlined in our admin code that if we can't come to a decision about the vice chair position, then that will be the process. So I just want to make sure that there's a crystal clear record because there has been a lot of confusion about that process. And when the reorganization occurred, what happened is that when two members of the board realized that the board was going to change, their positions were going to change, then they proceeded to attempt to to leave the meeting so as to break a quorum so that the reorganization didn't happen. However, what they did was they didn't leave the meeting, they actually chose to sit in the audience, which means that there is still a quorum, and that was when the reorganization happened. So for the record, the reorganization occurred legally and properly, and so therefore, I was put in the chair position, and Director Archer Bond was put in the vice chair position. So I want to go ahead and move forward on that, but we want to make sure that the secretary has a clear understanding of that, and that we notify the public so that there's understanding of that and we can move forward.
If I
Thank
may, Director Vasquez?
We're going to go ahead and move forward.
Because I just want people to know that I understand that there is some confusion over that part. I shouldn't even say confusion, I should say disagreement over what that particular administrative code section says. We have a very different interpretation. I'd be happy to share that with you to inform you about how we arrived at our position.
We've had several discussions, sir, about that, and first off, as I mentioned, your firm resigned on January the 30th. And
we didn't resign.
You've continued to try and silence the people that this community.
I would never try to silence you or anybody else. That is not who I am. So I would never do that.
Sir,
so
you
that's
just
false.
said that we couldn't talk about the sexual harassment that occurred in public.
That's a much different situation. That's a legal issue. That's a legal issue which could put this district in a bad situation, which is why I asked you not to talk about it in public. That's far different from me trying to silence anybody. That's not who I am, and that's not who my firm is. I would never do that.
Okay, you did say in the meeting that we shouldn't talk about it in public, so.
Correct. You shouldn't talk about any legal issue where you could potentially be sued in public, because that could put the organization in a very bad position. And my job is not only protect you, but this organization and every single director here, as well as members of the public. Because ultimately, if there's a lawsuit and this organization loses that lawsuit, it's the ratepayers and it's the residents who would have to pay for it. So I'm trying to do my job here. I'm not trying to play politics or be difficult. I'm trying to give you legal advice, and that's it.
Thank you for your legal advice, sir, but it's very clear, and it's on a video, that these two gentlemen engaged in an assault against me, and it is my opinion that you're trying to silence us, but we're gonna go ahead and move forward because, again, the record is crystal clear. Director Camacho Rodriguez, did you have a comment?
So as we move forward as a public agency committed to the best interests of our community, I think it's really sad that as we sit here as a community of people witnessing whatever it is that's going to play out, that we remind each other that we're not going to support the predators that continue to prey on individuals in our community. And I think it's a disservice to all of us when we have legal counsel who gave directives to our staff to do actions that are illegal. And so while this firm resigned on January 30th, they continue to sit here and prey on the best interests of the community. And I'm not mincing my words. I am not mincing my words. So it needs to be stated that we are a public agency, and as a public agency, we have constituents that we are serving, and we need to keep that in mind when we come to these meetings that are public, and when they are videotaped and our own staff refuses to put these videos up as a public record, and when our staff and on the advice of the attorneys continue to filter, to edit and clip out scenes of our public record, I might say that's a tad bit of a conflict and possibly illegal. And furthermore, when our attorneys, not in appearance, hijack our board by instructing our staff to do things that are not appropriate and possibly illegal, is not okay. So for our attorneys, to instruct,
those are very serious
for our attorneys to instruct one of our chief financial officers.
Not only that, but
our chief financial officer was instructed to wire transfer $30,000 to another attorney. And so while our legal counsel hijacks our board And then in the attempt of the optics to blame the board, I'm not gonna stand here, and I know my community behind me and present is not gonna stand for it either. So we're not gonna continue the predator practices. We're not gonna continue to disrupt the business of this public agency, and we are going to represent our communities. So with that stated, we need this to be clearly put on record. And at the end of the day, we need to document all of those things that have currently happened, because at the end of the day, those who suffer are the ones that we represent.
Madam President.
My last comment, I'm sorry. I need to point out to the men sitting in our audience. When we ended the meeting and we had representatives from our district fist bump the predators on our board, that was not okay. Keep in mind that was videotaped. You have a mother, and si tienen madre, you're gonna need to start respecting the community, whether they're men or women, because you can prey on men just like you can prey on women. And you need to start thinking about who you represent if you're working for a public official.
Madam President, I think we need to stay on the agenda.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and, what is the pleasure of the board? I know that there, historically has been, the agendas have been, organized in a fashion where closed session is, the business of closed session is conducted towards the end of the meeting. Is moving forward with the current agenda as it is informed, is that the interest of the body here? To move forward?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right, so, so that said, we're gonna go ahead and,
Madam Director,
yes.
you asked one director, you did not ask any of the others. Did you want to take a roll call vote on the matter?
I don't think there's any opposition, so unless there's opposition,
Mr. President, if you don't mind, please. Dan,
go ahead.
you were saying something.
I asked the question. The acting president told me where I'm at. I'm good.
Yeah, would you like to proceed with the closed session the way it is, sir?
May we take the item of an acting general manager and forego the other items until the end of the session so that we can hopefully appoint an acting general manager to take care of the business of the district?
Is that a motion?
It is.
I'll second that.
So
At
we have
this
a
point,
first
I
and
think you
second.
should recess to closed session.
So we have a first and a second to take, to basically rearrange the item of appointing the
Not rearrange, to take into consideration the one item closed session and move the other items to the end.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you wanna change, you wanna go into closed session to address the manager issue, and then, leave the remaining items. Okay, so, is that something that, we had a first and a second to do that? Can we have a roll call?
Director Chacon?
Yes.
Director Beatty?
Yes.
Director Hawkins?
Yes.
Director Oscui?
Yes.
Director Vasquez?
Yes?
Director Camacho Rodriguez?
I say no, because if the person sitting to my right who their agency quit January 30th, I'm concerned about going into closed session. So with that being stated,
Well, we're gonna have, we're also gonna have, the firm of Willoughby and Associates in closed session as well. They're the attorneys.
thank you, then yes.
Thank you.
Director Apodaca?
Yes.
So we're gonna recess, to discuss item number 4 in closed session, and then we'll return to completion of the discussion.
You're just taking 4 in closed session, not the whole thing?
I would like the disrespect.
Council?
¿Cómo están? Yo me sentí ofendida. ¿Cómo estamos? Ahorita están calmados. Este señor que está aquí trabaja en la ciudad. Es el asistencia. Es un viejo, puede conocerlo, no sé cómo está sentado. Cristina creó que se sentara este y ese y otro para que vieran que estos no cometieran fraude, pero lo único que querían hacer es hacer un despapaya. Ahorita se portaron bien. Aquí estaba ella, se grabó todo. El señor que estaba ahí la quiso tirar de la silla. Nada más porque no aceptan que ella sea la víctima, porque no les conviene. Ahorita se portaron bien porque este señor, el señor que está sentado aquí voltea a ver al abogado y con la mirada le da órdenes, que es lo que tiene que hacer. ¿No te das cuenta? Está pero calmado. Es una vergüenza. Es una vergüenza que se comporten como animales. ¿Cómo vas a tener empleados que no siguen órdenes del presidente? Vas a pedir que nosotros se tienen que ir, ¿no? Ahorita están calmados, no te exagero. Este señor parecía payaso, ¿verdad? Están calmados. Se les aventaron casi a golpes a estas mujeres, porque son mujeres, porque son hispanas. ¿Cómo crees que van a tomar órdenes de una mujer? Es una mujer hispana. A lo mejor si fuera blanca, a lo mejor la toman posiblemente, pero no, es una. Déjame ir allá conmigo. Ok, gracias a la comunidad, vamos a tener la comunidad.
Obviously, what it is to actually have a conference. Oh, yeah, I'll come get you. His concern, if you go in there,
No, yo no me digo agitada.
Yeah.
So that's his concern. So he's basically taking the position that we should be. I mean, I'm okay if he did what he did. Just see everything was what happened. We're back there. Right, but I just want you to know so clear. So I wasn't there either, but it was. Stephen was getting me out. Yeah, he's like, I'm done with this. You're not gonna do it. Yeah, he's like, I'm done with this. Okay. He says, I'm done with this. So, yeah, so he came out. That was sort of it. But they took that as his resignation. So then we sent a letter to them saying that we weren't going to seek renewal of our contract past the 28th. Right? And plus our contract requires the 30-day notice. So we gave the notice and we said it also ends on the 28th. So that would be the last day. Right. So that's been our position. Yeah, no.
So what I would say is, if we can get through the rest of the meeting. Actually, let me see how many we have now. We have 5 now. We have 6. We have 6. So if your position is at 4 votes is enough, then you'll have to get one chimes in.
Yeah, no, I think 4 votes is enough.
Okay.
The Attorney General.
Yeah, I read it. I'm just counting days until we get out of here. Oh, have you?
Mucho aire puro. Son 2 horas, Chihuahua, donde el pueblo de ellos creo que es más cómodo es que
Mira, los que la ley, le voy a servir los que ganaron la elección, es ella, Arturo y el otro señor, y este gordito, pero este gordito le ha costado a la ciudad, a la compañía, miles y miles de dólares, pero no pagaban por ser cosas, y está todo eso. Porque ya se ha comportado de manera
Get back to it.
tenemos la capacidad de nosotros gobernar a nosotros.
So you record.
¿Y cómo te vas?
Yeah, Michelle. Yeah.
Ahorita te hacemos una cosa.
Of course.
Yo me quedo sin dinero. Y si me compro esto, me va a alcanzar para ahorita me lo encuentro en la entonces, me compré con $25 que me regalé. Y el señor me dije, son como 25, no 25 centavos. Pero salió de una vez en 25. En una vez, pero eso también no vive en espacio. Me salí y trabajas mucho y no te pagan nada. No, dije, me pagas no, me subió más. dinero que me puede regalar para pagar. Pero yo así como, ¿quién me regala otra pagás? Que si me empezó a dar, sí, pagué. El señor me dijo que no, le digo, paso la vergüenza de pedir dinero, pues me va a dar. No, yo te entiendo, me acompañó hasta, me llevó hasta, me tomó un café, me compró mi panecito, y luego me dijo el señor que algunos cambios, me dice el señor que su hija era policía en el aeropuerto. Al señor se le como mucha tristeza y su hija no la hice. Me dio una parte de me llevó a hacer el cafecito. Pues para hacer no, le digo, a veces yo no se me atraviesa que no te ha pasado eso, ¿no? A mí me pasa nada. Se dio ya me dejó para es una causa. Te golpean así y están golpeando a todo el mundo ahora a ver cómo manejan. Te vienes como la señorita. Esa de antes es la you're right, but it's a title like council. Council for this parliament. But they make decisions for women and they get this job empleados de esas comunidades no estaban inventando me hubiera gustado que este muchacho que le hubiera dicho esto, pero también no nomás a él, sino también a mí. Ellas hacen muestras y no te vienes acá. Qué bien. ¿Cómo les digo? Pero si así, porque hacen las presencias. Pero a veces estas cosas más pasando las tú sabes más a la carrera, entonces y sales con pero sí son.
Very good.
La cosa es que está perdiendo alguna de esta cosa. No crea, no muere, crea, porque muchos años que tienen y la cosa todavía se acá. O sea, no sé if I can merge them o no sé, can you do that? They're gonna disciple legal costs. La muchacha que está ahí, Cecilia Pulido, pero no hace caso porque trabaja con él. Entonces estaba pensando en esto.
Other side of what?
¿Cuándo vas a tener? ¿Qué vas a decir si no quieres hacer la presión? No lo hagas. No tienes que hacer. Está la puerta.
Yeah,
All right, the board is now back from closed session at 11:06 a.m. And the board took action on item number 4, which is listed as the closed session discussion conference with legal counsel, government code section 4957, public employee performance appointment and evaluation, employee discipline release. And the board took action to hire and appoint Carlos Pinilla as the interim general manager of the Central Basin Municipal Water District until the board goes through a process and hire a permanent general manager, and directing the Human Resources Department to execute a contract and bring it before the board at its next regular meeting.
If I may, President Vasquez, for the record, can you just identify what the vote was in closed session? Thank you.
Yes, present in closed session, and for the record, Director John Osuli has left the board meeting. Madam Secretary, do you know what time you left the board meeting?
I noted it down as 10:44 a.m.
10:44 a.m., okay. The vote was 4 yeses, 1 absent, and 2 noes. The yeses are Director Phil Hawkins, Director Martha Camacho Rodriguez, Vice Chair Archer Cohn, and the Chairperson Vasquez were the affirmative votes. The no votes were Directors Robert Apodaca, Directors Dan Origi, and they were no votes, and the individual that was absent was Director John Muscoli.
And if I may, President Vasquez, I just wanted to know for the record that I think everybody understands that there is a difference of opinion between myself and Mr. Willoughby as to how many votes is necessary to take action. Our opinion has been that it takes 5 votes of this body to take any action. So in my opinion, the action that was taken in closed session is not valid. I'll turn the mic over to Mr. Willoughby because he has a difference of opinion on that point.
Pursuant to the brief that I shared and also gave to former council,
And I'll submit as record to the board secretary.
citing the Attorney General's opinion, when a quorum is the majority of the board that is present, and you're entitled to act and vote. You're not rendered impotent because the individual decided to absent himself from the board.
Or resign.
Or resign.
We currently have a member, 7 members that serve on this body. We had a resignation from Director Frank Heldman back in January. He resigned from the board. Essentially changing the composition of this board to a 7-member board of directors. So the opinion is based upon that number of directors.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
So I want to address my comment to Mr. Olivares, who did not give an opinion to Steve O'Neill when he appointed Kevin Wadier. So the lawyers do not have the authority to appoint a general manager, nor do they have the authority by admin code, legal code, water code to instruct our chief financial officer to wire or transfer money to any other individuals. So I want to remind people when we listen to people's opinions, you need to think that's exactly what it is. But we're mandated and we are following water code, we're following law, and we're following our admin code. So I am not going to mince my words when I tell our community that we are not going to allow people to hijack our board with their opinions and then behind the scenes make puppets of our staff and compromise them legally and otherwise.
And
thank you.
And if I may respond to that, Director, President Vasquez. First of all, I take issue with everything that, respectfully, with everything that Director Camacho Rodriguez said. As lawyers, we give advice. That's all we do. And we have given advice to this body. We have given advice to staff, and we stand by that advice. Our advice is pure. We don't play politics. We don't try to hurt anybody by our opinions. We try to give.
You should have given O'Neill good advice. You should have given Mr. O'Neill good advice.
You may not like the advice, Director, with all due respect that we give.
Your lawyers don't have the authority to give directives to wire transfer money. Your lawyers do not have authority to direct our staff. Your lawyers do not have authority to hijack a public agency and think that you're going to do anything that you feel you want to do.
For the record, we haven't done any of the things that you're alleging that we did.
Mr. Hamilton, in protection of yourself, you need to make a public statement that you were instructed by Steve Wadier, who was appointed by Steve O'Neill to ask you to wire transfer $30,000. That is not our money, and we don't do things behind closed doors. And that's not going to continue to happen with people coming here to give the optics that the board is doing things that are incorrect.
And if you are alleging that my
I'm not alleging. You have that on paper.
You have that on paper. Crime, I want to advise you that that is defamatory, and my partner never did anything of the sort. The only thing my partner has done has been to come into a very, very difficult situation in this organization and done his best to do everything he can to push the agenda forward. He has not, and he would not commit a crime or advise someone to do something that was inappropriate.
We're gonna go ahead and move forward. I mean, we've all been privy to the discussions where the firm that, I guess you're a part of the firm, you say one thing behind closed doors and then you say another thing in open doors. And, one of them was you informed us that the general manager had no valid contract. And then in the next breath, you were directing our staff to continue to pay him salary and benefits. And that is in writing, and we'll produce that when the time comes. But we're gonna go ahead and move forward with our agenda. And I do wanna go ahead and ask Mr. Carlos Padilla to join us at the dais. And welcome to Central Basin. And we know you're not a stranger to this agency or this community, so we definitely want you to give a little bit of background and introduction about who you are, what your experience is, and why you're interested in being here on an interim basis.
And Madam President, I take it that my services are no longer needed?
Right.
You resigned January 30th.
You have Mr. Willoughby here to advise you going forward. Thank you.
Well, you've resigned from the effective January 30th, and I did.
With all due respect, I think our last day is February 28th pursuant to our contract. So if you need anything from today until the 28th, we're available. And I want to thank each and every one of you for the opportunity to serve. I have a relationship with each of you, and I have the utmost respect for all of you and for the staff. I want to say it's been a pleasure to work with you. I hope all of you the best going forward, and to you, President Vasquez.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Padilla.
Madam Director.
Yes.
Before we set the new acting general manager, do you hold the Central Basin Administrative Code as being an authoritative document? You're relying on your position as president under your understanding of what the administrative code says. Is that correct?
I don't understand what.
Is the administrative code that you are citing?
Sir, this is not a deposition. Go
I'm
ahead and
asking
make your
simple.
point.
Okay. Section 4.4 Rules of Conduct of the Central Basin Administrative Code specifically states the affirmative vote of at least 5 directors is necessary for the board to take action. So,
Yes, sir, and that's assuming that we have an 8-member board. We do not have an 8-member board. And if you would take time to read the opinion, I will see to it that the general manager gives everyone a copy.
The secretary left the days. I don't know that matters.
Okay. The point here is that that is in the administrative code based on an 8-member board of directors, not 7. So that said.
Madam President, for the board's edification, the way the law is structured, case law is supreme, then the court's opinion, and the administrative code is for this body. However, the administrative code does not supersede state law.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Pena. Brief introduction.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Carlos Padilla, and I'm a resident of the district. Have extensive career in public service, and I will keep my comments short and elaborate at a later date. Thank you.
Okay, thank you and welcome. All right, so the next item on the agenda is item number 6, which is the appointment of the acting general.
Yep. That's in closed session.
I'm sorry, that wasn't, yeah. So item number 9, the Metropolitan Water District Board activities.
All right, good morning, directors. 3 items I wanted to update you on with respect to activities that are happening at the Metropolitan Water District. First of all, it's a proposed biennial budget and rates process. The Metropolitan held a budget and rates workshop last Monday, February 10th, to begin this process. And overall, their increase for their bundle rate average around 5% in the next 2 years. They are going to have several upcoming workshops in the coming weeks and months. Starting with tomorrow, they're going to have another budget workshop, February 25th at 1 o'clock. Then on Monday, March 9th, they're going to discuss it at the Finance Committee. And then they will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, March 10th. So Metropolitan and their board will consider adoption of the biannual budget rates at their board meeting in April on April 14th. And next, the Integrated Resources Plan Committee. Metropolitan has formed a new special committee on the Integrated Water Resources Plan, also known as the IRP. And this IRP is updated every 5 years to address several different ways that they can achieve supply reliability for the region. This particular committee will provide input on how the region's water supply will be developed and managed over the next 20 years, and also make recommendations for any updates to Metropolitan blueprint for long-term planning. And then lastly, their annual progress report. Metropolitan had submitted their annual progress report on February 1st to the California State Legislature on achievements during the fiscal year 2018-19. And this report summarizes their progress in achieving the goals of increased emphasis on cost-effective conservation, recycling, and groundwater recharge. And we'll be providing a copy of that report as well to you at our Water Resources Committee next month. And that concludes my update.
Thank you. All right, so now we have item number 10, which is the annual board reorganization of the board of directors.
I believe you took care of that on January 30th.
We did. So the item, we'll go ahead and we took care of A and B, so we'll go ahead to C, which is the election of the Water District, Metropolitan Water District representatives and approval of the resolution appointing directors as Metropolitan Water District representatives. As many of you know, the Central Basin Municipal Water District holds 2 positions on the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California Board of Directors, which is a board that is composed of 38 members that serve a service area that stretches from San Diego to Ventura County. That 38-member board of directors manages and operates all of the infrastructure that we use to bring water in from the State Water Project, the Colorado River, and Diamond Valley Lake. Central Basin Municipal Water District is a member agency of the Metropolitan Water District, and through our membership, we have an opportunity to appoint 2 members to serve on that Metropolitan Water District Board of Directors. We do so every year. And so this is an opportunity for us to go ahead and make those appointments for our representatives. Can I have a motion? Can I have a motion? Can you make a motion?
Mr. Theo Hawkins and Martha Camacho.
Okay, I'll go ahead and second that motion to appoint directors Bill Hawkins and Martha Camacho to the Metropolitan Water District Board of Directors of Southern California to represent the Central Basin Municipal Water District. Can I have a roll call, please?
Director Chacon?
Yes.
Director Rubini?
No.
Director Hawkins?
Yes.
Director Schooley? Director Vasquez?
Yes.
Director Camacho Rodriguez?
Yes.
Director Apodaca?
No.
All right, congratulations to our new and re-elected members of the Metropolitan Water District Board. Next item on the agenda is we will now be recessing to the Central Basin Finance Corporation. And
Director Vasquez, I have there's a script that we follow when it comes to the finance.
thank you.
Madam President?
Yes.
Can we ratify Mr. Williams' contract?
Sure, that item is on the agenda. It's item number 21. Okay. So we'll get there soon. Okay, so we're gonna recess. So may I have a motion to open up the Central Basin Municipal Water District Finance Corporation Board meeting? So Director Chacon, made the motion to, open the Central Basin Water District Financing Corporation meeting. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a first and a second?
Director Chacon?
Yes.
Director Reedy?
No.
Director Hawkins?
Yes.
Director Schooley? Director Vasquez?
Yes.
Director Camacho Rodriguez?
Yes.
Director Apalaca?
No.
All right, determination of a quorum. Mr. Attorney? Do we have a quorum to move forward with, the meeting of the, Finance Corporation?
Yes, you do.
Thank you. Do we have any public comments? No public comments? All right, election of board officers. Can I have a motion for the president and vice president of, the Central Basin Municipal Water District Financing Corporation?
Before we do that, I have a bit of a concern and a few questions. So in the year that I've been here, I have yet to receive any reports or any documents regarding that committee. So I want to know who were the individuals previously in those positions?
Can you answer that question?
So what typically happens is every year when the board reorganizes, your board officers, board president and vice president, are the same in your financing corporation, and Andrew could probably address what the financing corporation is. But typically what your board officers are is what your board officers for the financing corporation are. So it's not a particular committee, but Andrew, if you could elaborate.
So this is a dormant corporation. I apologize, I got some sinus issues. So every year, the last meeting of this agency was approximately a year ago. I believe it was in January. There's no activities done. Only when the district refinances its debt or issues new debt does this corporation kind of come out of dormancy and is used. So there will not be any meetings since the last meeting similar to this approximately a year ago. I believe it was 13 months ago. Does that answer your question?
And it's necessary for optics, it's necessary for, you mentioned 2 items, but wouldn't there be any kind of reports that are circulating even if it's dormant?
No, it's on a consolidated reporting basis. It's the same entity in essence when we report our CAFR, so there's no additional paperwork that's necessary or produced. And so this corporation literally just is dormant only except when the agency, Central Basin, issues debt or refinances debt.
How about if we give away assets? Does it have anything to do with this?
No.
That's not part of our finances?
It's just a special purpose corporation that's only used during financial debt transactions, whether it's reissuing, refinancing, those kind of transactions. So I believe the last meeting was in January, if the board secretary recalls. It was last February. Okay, so it's been exactly 12 months since the last meeting of this corporation.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions by any of the board members regarding this item? All right, that said, can I have a motion for the election of officers for the president and vice president?
I'll make a motion that our president and vice president continue in that capacity.
Okay, would you name the names?
For our president, Leticia Vasquez, and our vice chair, Art Chacon, to remain as the head of that dormant, if I got it correct, entity.
Mm-hmm. So that's a motion. Can I get a second? All right. So we have a first and a second. It was seconded by Director Hawkins. Can I have a roll call, please?
Director Chacon?
Yes.
Director Reedy?
No.
Director Hawkins?
Yes.
Director Schooley? Director Vasquez?
Yes.
Director Camacho Rodriguez?
Yes.
Director Apalaca?
No.
All right. Thank you. So we're going to go ahead and reconvene the Central Basin Municipal Water District Board of Directors agenda.
You need to adjourn the finance committee meeting. The meeting is now adjourned.
So we're gonna adjourn the meeting of the, Finance Corporation and reconvene the meeting of the Central Basin, Municipal Water District. And we're at item 11, which is the consent calendar.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
before we go there, was there supposed to be a confirmation of legal counsel to the financing corporation?
oh, I apologize, yeah, thank you for that, Director Reedy. We, let me see, that's ABC, so we need to actually, go ahead
Madam
and,
Chair,
yes,
did you need to reopen the corporation meeting?
that's exactly what I was gonna do.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
my apologies.
Thank you. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and, reconvene, the meeting of the Central Basin Finance Corporation to address item number D, which is the confirmation of legal counsel.
Motion to open.
Yes,
May I have-
so can I have a motion to open? Second?
Director Chacon?
Yes.
Director Reedy?
No.
Director Hawkins?
Yes.
Director Schooley? Director Vasquez?
Yes?
Director Camacho Rodriguez?
Yes.
Director Apalaza?
No,
Okay, so item number D is the confirmation of legal counsel. Can I have a motion, to confirm the, legal counsel for the Finance Corporation? I'm waiting for a motion.
You need to state who the counsel is that you wish to appoint.
Well, that's gonna be done by motion, so I need someone to, give me a motion on who the, general counsel.
I move to make, Anthony Willoughby or, general counsel for the finance corporation.
I second that.
All right, it was first, the motion was made by Director Hawkins, seconded by Director Camacho Rodriguez. Can I have a roll call, please?
Director Chacon?
Yes.
Director Reedy?
No.
Director Hawkins?
Yes.
Director Schooley? Director Vasquez?
Yes?
Director Camacho Rodriguez?
Yes.
Director Apalaza?
no.
All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting of the Finance Corporation and reconvene, the meeting of the Central Basin Municipal Water District Board of Directors. And so now we're on the, consent calendar, item number 11.
Are there any questions regarding the minutes? Or are we going through the whole consent calendar, item by item?
What is the wish of, my colleagues, the wish of the board?
Motion to move the consent calendar.
So there was a first and a second to, move the consent calendar. Yes,
Director Chacon?
Before I make my motion, is there anything to, not submit
In the demands?
it? Yeah.
One second. I don't believe there's anything in the demands related to Nelson.
Okay, yes.
Can I make a comment before we move? So,
hold on, we have a first and a second.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the motion has already made to approve the consent calendar.
Got it.
There are a number of questions that I have. I was hoping someone would, you know, but, we'll go ahead and do the roll call, and if we don't have the votes to move it forward, then we can proceed with the questions that are being asked.
Director Chacon?
Yes.
Director Reedy?
Yes.
Director Hawkins?
Yes.
Director Schooley? Director Vasquez?
No?
Director Camacho Rodriguez?
No.
Director Apalaza?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That was, how many affirmative votes?
4.
Oh, okay. So then it passes.
No, I'd like to change my mind, because I noticed there's some items here that, I disagree with.
All right, so then I need a motion to reconsider.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
We have a first and second to reconsider, Director Chacon's vote on this item.
Director Chacon?
Yes.
Director Ricky?
No.
Director Hawkins? Director Hawkins?
No.
Director Oscui? Director Vasquez?
Yes?
Director Camacho Rodriguez?
Yes.
Director Apodaca?
No.
What is, how many affirmative votes?
3 and 3, Director.
Okay, so,
Consider that.
If it's 3-3, the motion fails.
okay, so,
He's reconsidering it. I'll reconsider.
so, Director Hawkins, is asking for reconsideration. So can I have a motion for Director Hawkins to reconsider?
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
So Director Chacon made the motion for Director Hawkins to be, vote to be reconsidered, and then, Director Camacho Rodriguez seconded the motion for reconsideration.
Director Chacon?
Yes.
Director Ricky?
No.
Director Hawkins? Director Oscui? Director Vasquez?
Yes?
Director Camacho Rodriguez?
Yes.
Director Apodaca?
No.
That was 4-2.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and open up the discussion, around the consent calendar again, since we had a reconsideration of the vote.
Madam President,
Yes,
if we have the directors please call out which items they wish to pull from the consent calendar and have discussion on.
that's exactly where I was going, thank you. All right, can we have, the directors who are interested in pulling items for discussion? So then we can move the remainder of the consent calendar.
I'd like to pull for myself 11 and 12.
Okay, 11 and 12.
And 17, I'm sorry, 11, 12, and 17 for myself.
Thank you. 11, 12, and 17. So can I have a motion to move the remainder of the consent calendar, which
Madam
is,
Director,
yes,
you need to ask the other directors if anyone else has an item they wish to pull.
does anyone else have an item that he wishes to pull?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I've been listening and
You need to ask the question, Madam Director. You cannot assume that a director does not have an item to pull.
they were the only ones that, okay, yes, sir, all right. So we have items number 13, items number 14, 15, and 16. Are there any other items, that, any members of this body want to pull?
Move the balance of the consent calendar.
So the balance of the consent calendar, there's a motion to move the balance of the consent calendar, which are items 13, 14, 15, and 16. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Director Chacon?
Yes.
Director Ricky?
Yes.
Director Hawkins?
Yes.
Director Oscui? Director Vasquez?
Yes,
Director Camacho Rodriguez?
Yes.
Director Apodaca?
Yes.
thank you. So we have items number 11, 12, and 17 on the consent calendar. Do we have any members of the body that have specific questions
I do.
about those items?
I'll start, and then as soon as I'm done, any other of my colleagues that would like to add, I encourage you to do that. So, my concern with number 11, in terms of action on minutes, is that if I'm doing my count correctly, we're 8 months behind on minutes. So my concern with September 23rd, 2019 is we still haven't looked at June, July, August. And so for us to even skip those, knowing that they're tied to our litigation, is a concern. And so I'd like to go ahead and request that we bundle June, July, and August with September, and that we have an update on where we're at. My understanding, one of those meetings that was recorded was not very clear, but I don't know that we're basing our minutes on the recording more than we are on the actual recording behind the dates. So I would like for us to, for full transparency, is make sure that we're keeping up with what we need to do because it's now the end of February and we're barely approving. The optics on this paper says September. And I still have questions about June, July, and August.
So, the September minutes, yes, we are behind. There are a couple of other sets of minutes that we haven't yet completed, we're drafting, so we're working on it. So we hope to be able to bring those forward in the next month, ideally, so that's where we are with minutes. The ones that are missing are the July 22nd, which is where the recording was clear, and that I believe we're supposed to send out to see if we could fix the audio. And then there's also the July 31st, the August meeting minutes, and I believe November and December, and all of the January meetings that have taken place. So we are a little bit behind, but we are trying, we're making the best effort to complete the minutes.
Okay, so just for the record, you mentioned, Director Camacho mentioned that we hadn't finished June, July, August, September. And then you mentioned November and December, those not done.
They're drafted, but they need a review and checking our notes, checking the audio to make sure we haven't missed anything.
So just to add for clarification, so we had a meeting July 10th, we had a meeting July 22nd, we had a meeting July 31st, so that's 1, 2, 3. So if we're counting how many, I would like our public to know how many minutes that we're missing.
Okay, I can look back, but I believe the July 10 minutes are up. It's just the July 22nd and July 31st, if I'm not mistaken, but I can go back and double check. Our website does have whatever has been approved is uploaded on our website on the board agendas page.
Okay, what is the reason for you being so behind on the minutes?
Competing demands, Director, and there's a lot going on. So it takes a while to draft the minutes because both Sharon and I will sit through and listen to the recording to make sure that the notes that we take, that we didn't miss anything in between. And though the recording may be 2 hours, 2.5 hours, it takes us longer because it's a pause and play matter, and sometimes if it's not clear, it takes going back and forth a couple of times. So we want to make sure that they're as accurate as possible.
How long have you been the board secretary?
Board secretary as of August, I believe, but deputy board before that. So 7 years as deputy and about 6 months as board secretary.
Okay. So you were installed as board secretary in August, and then okay. So when was were you ever in the position by yourself?
No, Sharon came on board to our department around the same time, but again, because of the competing demands and everything we have going on, it's been difficult to sit down and train. It's more as you go, and Sharon has been helpful, but still there needs to be a review by myself to confirm our notes, so.
Yeah, I'm just very concerned because I mean, this is many months and the minutes are not produced. So I'm not sure what those competing demands are, but I'm concerned that our public is not getting the information in light of the litigation that we're dealing with. And so I hope that, you know, this is something that can be addressed quickly.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you need additional support, that's something that needs to be discussed. So that we can get the support that is needed, but it's not acceptable for a public agency to not have board meeting minutes available for the public. You know, this is the public's business, the people's business that we conduct, and they have a right to have access to the minutes that reflect the decisions that are being made on their behalf. So, all right, so we're gonna go ahead and defer action on this until we can bring all of the meeting minutes before the agenda, or what is the wish of the board member that brought this item before the board, or that addressed the issues before the board?
So as I'm counting at January, we're 9 minutes behind. Nine
months.
Well, no, meeting time.
Okay.
Because we held 3 meetings, July 10th, July 22nd, and July 31st, just in July.
Okay.
So, for full transparency, as we're being, called on our work, I think it needs to be clear that if this is a public agency reporting public business, that we need to let our public agency know, our public and our constituents know that we are on or about 9, sets of minutes. And so we would need to do something to support, to expedite that.
Right. Right, okay, so with respect to item number 11, do we want to defer action on that, or it's a part of the consent calendar for approval? Is the board member who brought this item before the attention of the board, are you interested in moving forward to approve this, or?
I'm not approving any minutes out of order. I want it to be very clear that if we're gonna approve minutes, we need to bring what's missing before that. And
So
we need
is
to
that a
make,
motion?
it's a motion to defer.
Okay, so the motion is to defer action on this item until we bring all of the minutes. Director Reedy, did you have? So it was, the motion was made by Director Camacho Rodriguez, it was seconded by, Director Chacon, to defer action on this item until all the meeting minutes are brought before the board for approval. Can I have a roll call?
Director Chacon?
Yes.
Director Reedy?
No.
Director Hawkins?
No.
Director Oscui? Director Vasquez?
Yes.
Director Camacho Rodriguez?
Yes.
Director Apodaca?
No.
It's 3-3.
3-3. All right, so, we'll just have to bring this item back. It's not. So item number 12. Financial reports, A, demands, and B, investments.
So I can proceed with the presentation for each of the items or answer questions, whatever the board's pleasure is.
So my question on the demands moving forward, one of our, so just guide me if I'm not framing this correctly. So our demands are the payments we make, is that correct?
Correct.
So
in that calendar month,
okay,
prior to the board meeting, so in this case, it would be January.
So for full transparency, we have been making or doing a ceremonial vote where we're voting after bills are paid. And so I'd like for us to reconsider that action. And so as we move forward, we need to address that. That to me is not something that I feel comfortable that I'm going to vote after an action was committed. So if there's a bill in question and I don't have full detail about it, and then when it comes back on paper in form of a list of demands, my concern is that I voted for something ceremonially, that's number one, and number two, that's unsettling. It's unsettling to me.
So we'll bring that item back for discussion during a committee. The whole process of approving the demands, I know that has been an issue that has been discussed, and with our previous general manager, we've been informed that when the warrant run comes before us, that it's a ceremonial vote and our vote doesn't matter. As I mentioned, I served on a city council for quite some time, and our warrant run identified all of the vendors that were receiving payment from the city, for example, in that instance. And it came before the board for approval or rejection. And if the entity rejected it, the vendor wasn't paid, and it was required, an affirmative vote was required for there to be payment. So, in fact, and I talked about this with you previously, the whole issue with the secret trust fund that gave way to that lawsuit against the former attorneys that represented Central Basin is the fact that those payments never came before the board. So the fact that our former general manager and our staff has consistently informed us that a warrant run means nothing, and that our affirmative or rejection of a vote, of a demand that comes for us is solely ceremonial is still a question for a number of us. So we want to have that discussion a little bit more in detail during our committee meeting and consider a policy that would bring more clarity with respect to that practice.
And I want to add that when the previous attorney instructed our staff to wire transfer a payment of $30,000, does not leave a good optic for our community and in transparency of our agency. A general manager does not have the authority over $20,000, and in the absence of a general manager, he appointed an interim, which was not something that was brought to the board. And so in the previous history that we saw, the board gets blamed for everything, but we're not upstairs navigating the ship. We're here being told after the fact and then being asked to make votes that if it's ceremonial, it already happened. And so we need to change the optics, we need to change the culture of allowing things to happen and then, oops, I'm bad. So I just wanted to make that statement again, that our previous attorney went ahead and appointed an interim director, who then that interim director asked Andrew to wire transfer money to another attorney. And that goes against our admin code, that goes against every code that is here to monitor us, is here, to protect us in the best interest of who we serve. Thank you.
So with respect to item number A, the demands, I don't see the list of demands here on my agenda. What page are the demands on?
Page 20.
Oh. So, can I have a motion to approve the demands?
Is this ceremonial again?
I believe it's ceremonial until we look at the policy. I mean, there aren't any items that I have questions about. If anyone has any questions about any other of the items on the warrant demands, does anyone have any questions about?
I have a question,
Okay.
Mr. Hamilton, do the warrant runs also include payroll and federal withholding tax?
Yes.
And if those taxes and payroll is not paid, what are the consequences to the district?
There would be numerous late fees and penalties associated with not paying those in a timely manner. There's also some utilities that would fall into that category, like Southern California Edison, that's a large vendor of ours.
Okay, so my understanding again, which is the discussion we're having, and we don't bring this back before a committee, is that these bills have already been paid.
Correct.
Right. So, and that this is only a ceremonial vote. So if it's only a ceremonial vote and the bills have already been paid, why would there be any,
Madam Chair?
negative implications? Would you mind explaining that?
If, and this is the board's prerogative, but if we go to an approval of an item before it's actually being paid, there are certain deadlines. I think this might be, I don't want to speak for Director Aridi, but I believe he was alluding to, there are certain items that have a timely nature to them to being paid, i.e. payroll, certain vendors like Southern California Edison. And if we say we received that item in the mail today,
right,
it would miss this month's board meeting, and usually the due dates on payroll items and maybe some of the urgent items like vendors, you might have like a 2 or 3 week payment term. And so if we miss that payment term, that would cause us to be late and incur penalties and interest.
Right, but in this particular instance.
I'm not saying that the
warrant
board
runs-
wants to do that, I'm
No,
just
no, no.
saying that's
In
one of the
this-
discussion items that
Right.
would need to be addressed.
Right, in this particular
in this policy.
instance, all of the items that are laid out on page 20 of the warrant demands are checks that have been paid to vendors or bills that have been paid already, right?
Correct.
Right.
It could be checks, wires, ACH, any form of payment.
Right, so you've already paid all that.
Correct, for the
Right.
month of January on this
Right.
report.
Right, so if the board doesn't approve this, as you have mentioned, it's only ceremonial, and it doesn't mean anything because these bills have already been paid, correct?
I think an attorney has opined on that opinion in the past.
What has been that opinion?
To that effect, I think is what you're saying.
Yeah, right, so the bills have already been paid. I mean, I don't think that there is a will by this board to not make not pay the bills. I mean, we're definitely interested in doing that, but there's just a lot of ambiguity around the purpose of this warrant run, what happens, because on a number of occasions, directors have had questions about some of the payments that have been made. And by the previous general manager, and directors have been brushed off by saying, oh, you know what, it doesn't matter what you ask, it doesn't matter that you don't agree with, this bill being paid, because we've already paid it. And so that's what has been communicated to this board. So my point here is that while we don't want to stop payments, we just want to have clarity with respect to the warrant runs, the demands, and the role that we have as board members when these items come before us.
And staff
And
will.
we'll have a discussion about it.
Sure, staff will work collaboratively with the board to address any concerns that you have on this issue and
Great.
guide and help revise the policy if necessary.
Right, so today the bills are paid, right, and this is merely a ceremonial vote according to.
The bills have been paid regarding that. I think an attorney has opined on that
All
issue.
right,
I want to add one final comment. So my concern with that is not that I'm concerned about whether or not we pay our electricity. So for a teachable moment, common sense tells all of us that those bills have to get paid. But when warrant runs come up, and I have no idea why an individual is getting $35,000, another individual is getting $12,000, someone's getting $4,000, because this year that I've been here, I have yet to receive any report why we have a list of people and things that are being paid. So as a representative of my community, and I'd like to say not just the community that elected me, but the 1.6 million people that we represent, in full transparency, we need to know where that money's going. And if I don't know and I'm voting yes, just pay out these bills or wire transfer, the person who's going to end up looking like they don't understand what's going on is me. And I didn't come to sit here to represent people with an I don't know. And so I'd like, in full transparency of our agency and the change of our culture, as I mentioned in the year that I've been here, I was a little bit shocked that I would be told it's ceremonial, it's already been paid, but yet when I ask a question, I'm not going to get my answer. And that's concerning, because if we're saying that we're moving to make some changes in our finances so that we are sustainable, then I think it's okay for us as a unit to question what are all of these payments going to. And as I keep mentioning, the concern for me is if an attorney was able to appoint an interim general manager who instructed you to make a wire transfer, I have concerns, and I think our community should be concerned. And so we have checks and balances for a reason, and what I have seen is individuals that come here and they want to make their own opinion, however you want to frame it, and then we still have admin code, we still have water code, we still have case law, we still have all of these checks and balances that are here as a safety net and protection of our agency. And so I don't think it's unrealistic for me to ask, if we're paying out checks to individuals or wire transferring money, that the community know what it is, where it's going, and why. That's just my 2 cents.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, yes.
For clarification, the word celebration or ceremonial, I don't believe was ever banted. I believe the term is ratification. In a ceremony, you bring out the golden pen, you have banners and balloons and cake, and you have a ceremony. That's ceremonial. To ratify is to ratify something that someone else did, so therefore it is a ratification of the payment of those bills, not a ceremony. It's not a ceremony where you go look for the golden pen and you have banners and press and photo opportunities. So it's not ceremonial. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, those were the words of our general manager when
I believe the term was
we were asked.
ratification. To
It's on video.
ratify.
Yeah, it's on video. Any other questions?
Move the item.
So we have a motion to approve the warrant run.
Director Chabon?
Yes.
Director Ricky?
Yes.
Director Hawkins?
Yes.
Director Schooley? Director Vasquez?
Yes.
Director Camacho Rodriguez?
Yes.
Director Apodaca?
Yes.
All right, item 12B, investment report, liquidity and days cash evaluation for, as of January 2020.
Again, if the board's pleasure is for me to make my monthly report or have specific questions, please allow me to proceed.
Does any member of the board have a specific question regarding this item?
Move approval of item 11B, 12B.
Okay, motion to approve item 12B. Can I get a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Director Hawkins. Can I have a roll call?
Director Chabon?
Yes.
Director Ricky?
Yes.
Director Hawkins?
Yes.
Director Schooley? Director Vasquez?
Yes.
Director Camacho Rodriguez?
Yes.
Director Apodaca?
Yes.
All right, motion was approved. Item was approved. Item number 17, fiscal year 2020 contracts report at December 31st, 2019. Do any members of the board have questions with respect to this item?
Okay, what contract item are you talking about?
Actually, let's go ahead and have our staff give a report on this.
Good morning, directors. So admin code allows us to bring the contract reports every quarterly that is approved by the general manager and executed. So before you is the report for December 31st, 2019. I'll go to Exhibit A. Exhibit A on page 56, we have no contracts to report under informal solicitation. Next is Exhibit B, which is on page 58. We had one contract to report, which was Infomax amendment. This was approved by the board in May of 2019, and the amendment is executed, and it's right there.
What page is that on?
That is on page 58. The next,
Sure.
Okay. So the next exhibit is Exhibit C, Director, and on page 59, we had 4 contracts that was executed in that quarter. The first one was Aqua JPI for our medical insurance. The second one was with West Yost and Associate to prepare a proposal for the consultative water system. The third is with Valerie Howard to provide consulting services for the public communication strategy. And the last one was with Daniel Reynolds for human resources and risk management consulting services.
What page does that start on?
That is on page 59.
I have a question. May I? Yes. So for contracts for Valerie Howard and Daniel Reynolds, it's my understanding that these contracts were approved by the general manager.
The former general manager.
Former general manager. And so my concern is that under his authority, he was able to do that. Is that correct? So my concern with that as well is that in the year that I've been here, I did not receive any reports as to why they were going to be contracted, when they were contracted. It wasn't until after we started to see a push for payments and then the ask of what are these individuals doing behind the scenes. And so if these contracts, I just want to understand the process, so our community understands the process, how the optics is, if the general manager has authority for $20,000, he can do basically whatever he wants.
He can do a contract and then report, and the contract gets reported in a quarterly report like this. But it's up to, the general manager can also inform the board on.
If he wants. So is that part of our admin code that the general manager can pick and choose what he reports to the board?
Not that I know of.
So sitting here at the dais making decisions on contracts and warrant runs, there's a lot missing in terms of information for these individuals to be paid and questions. And so I just have a lot of concerns with how we do contracts, because at the end of the day, if the public doesn't know that behind the scenes, the general manager has the authority to do whatever he wants with chunks of $20,000, and then they just show up in a warrant run and our vote is ceremonial, and we were never notified of what those chunks of $20,000 were, that to me, I need our community to understand how money flows in and out, and that perhaps that needs to change, that kind of process needs to change, because for me not to know, that means my constituents don't know, that means 1.3 million people don't know. And so on our board previously were the previous president and the previous chair, were they notified of all these contracts, or were they at least informed?
Director, I don't communicate with them. It's the general manager that communicates with the vice president and president. So I see that it's the general manager's duty to inform the board.
Yeah, there needs to be, I mean, that might be a policy that we consider bringing back as well, because what appears to have happened very often under the direction of the previous general manager is that there were a number of contracts that had been approved and entered into by the previous general manager without having board approval. And it wasn't until he entered into those contracts